can't be successful if one thing in your life is lacking. And I think there's some truth to that of like, yeah, you can have a good bank account, but if your family life sucks, how can you be successful?
Hello, and welcome to the Level Up with Lily podcast. I'm your host, Lily. I'm helping you get 1% better every day by leveling up your health, wealth, and mind. If you are new here, please remember to like, subscribe, and rate this podcast wherever you are listening, and follow along on social media for all behind the scenes and updates. Today on the show, I am talking with Matt Lupi. Matt is a personal trainer and assistant general manager at the Kollective gyms in Austin, Texas. He works with high achievers to help them achieve their fitness-related goals. He is also the host of the Redefining Success podcast, where he talks with successful people about how they have gotten to where they are in life. In our conversation, we talk about what drew Matt to podcasting and to personal training, and how both of these have allowed him to level up in his own life. Matt also shared some lessons that he's learned from over 200 episodes of the Redefining Success podcast about what being successful truly means. Welcome to the show, Matt. Welcome, Matt, to the podcast. I'm so excited to have you.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Love what you're doing and excited to see where this podcast takes you and everything. So I'm glad to be a part of it.
Thank you. Well, us podcasters in Austin need to stick together.
Absolutely.
Of course. Well, as I start with all my guests, what is one thing you're doing to level up right now?
Yeah, just strengthening mind, body, spirit every day, doing something to make sure I'm getting a little bit better. So mindset is all just mostly reading books, listening to podcasts, making sure I'm actually going down the path that I need to be going down, not distracting myself with worldly things, but making sure I'm putting myself first and putting my goals first, connecting with good people that inspire me. Body, I work out every day. I'm in that fitness industry that's how I make a living, but also for myself, like I set big goals for myself fitness wise. I'm doing an Ironman this year. So
wow, exciting.
Yeah, training's looking a little bit different, but it's exciting. It's a good challenge, both physically and mentally. And then spiritually, just, connecting with the word and prayer and everything, making sure I'm putting that as a priority and making sure those three things are in check. I'm leveling up on a daily basis.
Oh, yeah, for sure. If all of those are in check, I feel like I am at my best too.
Yeah.
And you always notice when one of them is kind of off. It throws off the rest of them too.
I agree. Yeah. It's like also the timing of it. Like it's easier to just get it done first thing because we all have things to answer to, whether it's like a job or relationship. Like you get further in the day and all of a sudden you have all these commitments to deal with. But if you just dedicate time towards you and your goals first thing of the day, it gives you like a sense of like accomplishment of I'm actually doing what I'm supposed to be doing. But then also later in the day, if you do get busy, if you do get tired, you don't feel as bad about not checking those boxes because you already got it figured out.
Oh, that's awesome. Could you give us like a glimpse into what your morning typically looks like?
Yeah. So I like working out first thing in the morning. Maybe not first thing, but I get up.
What time?
It depends on the day. I'm typically around like 6 a.m.
Okay.
That's kind of like my sweet spot. Because I used to be like 4 a.m. like always just trying to like wake up as early as possible. But I'm realizing the importance of sleep. So I'm like, just get those 7 to 8 hours. Wake up around 6. I'm getting myself ready for the day. Get into the word, short prayer, and then eating and fueling myself for the day. So I ate basically the same breakfast. You just talked about outfit choice of like eliminating that decision fatigue. That's me with breakfast. Like cook the same thing. It's quick. It's easy. It makes me feel good. And I go to the gym and I start to train. So that's my time for about an hour to 2 hours of just like whether I'm listening to something or just like locking in on what the task is that day to making sure I'm moving my body, getting a good sweat in, and then whatever the day brings from there, I'm ready to go.
Cool. That sounds like a typical morning for me as well. I do a variation of that. And I posted this just the other day about I had gotten away from my morning lifts. I've been waking up and like getting right to work, which is sometimes good because I feel fresh. But then sometimes I notice that I'm slipping into, I worked for someone else for 10 hours today and then I haven't taken care of myself yet. So that's why I got back into my morning routine this week. I really wanted to lock back in on that. And I posted that and I said, the importance of taking care of yourself first before you take care of others is often forgotten or overlooked because you can't pour from an empty cup.
Absolutely. Yeah, so it's a good reminder for everyone, because most people are just looking at, like, you wake up, you check your calendar, you check the to-do list of all these things to do, and like it just raises your stress like crazy, because all of a sudden you're forecasting what could go wrong. What do I have to do? What is going to be absorbing my time and energy today? But if you could just say, I'm going to delay that for a little bit, maybe it's waking up earlier. Maybe it's just saying like no phone for 30 minutes, and you actually do something for yourself. I always feel happier, more fulfilled. I feel like I'm actually making progress because, like I said a little bit ago, you get towards the end of the day and you're exhausted. If you're working hard, it's so hard to make yourself intentional at the end of the day to invest into yourself.
Exactly. Well, I noticed that your bio, when I was reading a little bit into you before the episode, I noticed your bio is ordinary guy with extraordinary goals.
Yep.
That really struck me. Can you speak on that?
Yeah. I came up with that like a year and a half ago. I don't know how it came to me, but I just realized like there is nothing special about me at all. Like growing up, I was just like slightly above average in sports, academics, anything else in life. I was just like good enough. And I always thought that was a dangerous place to be, because you don't always have the itch. When you're good enough at something, you don't have the itch to get better, because you're like, I'm just getting by. I'm getting the A's and B's. I'm just making the team. I'm just doing enough for myself, just making enough money. So
and some people are fine with that.
For sure. That's why it's scary, because you don't realize there's a lot of room to improve. And I just sort of realized there's some people that are born with like really, really good traits. Like someone that's born with like physical traits that they can go play professional sports. That was not me. Someone born with a higher IQ. That was not me. Not to say I'm a terrible person and like had to work hard for changing everything about myself. But I realized like if I want to stay the same, I'm just going to scrape by for the rest of my life. If I want to stay ordinary, I'm just going to scrape by. But if I want to become extraordinary, I need to work on myself. So making sure I'm not just going to be above average, I'm going to be exceptional at different things. And what fuels me is just setting big goals, setting big goals for myself and surround myself with people that have big goals as well, to realize like, hey, what's possible? What should I be doing differently? And since I realized that a couple of years ago, like my life has changed a lot, because anything you've seen from any achievement I've had or a character trait, it's not something I was born with. It's all hard work. It's dedication. It's manifesting that. It's prayer. It's surrounding myself with people that push me to become better. And, I'm just going to keep riding that until I achieve what I want to achieve.
That's cool. And it's also kind of a bigger flex to have achieved those traits or those aspects of yourself by working on yourself instead of being born with them, instead of them being innate.
Yeah. And I also think like on the flip side, like the inspirational stories of someone who maybe like I think about a David Goggins who was like super overweight and then he grew up in an abusive family, and you overcome all of that. Like those are great stories, but also they're almost at an advantage to overcome things because their life was so difficult. Like I grew up like with a great upbringing. Like I was good. I was getting by with everything. So that's why it gets comfortable for you. Like for me, it was never like overweight, disability, abuse, anything like that. There's nothing that was like, wow, I need to change my life. So over time, it was just like, I'm not okay with just being average, just being ordinary. Like I need to actually work hard, and it makes for a good story because obviously you earn everything that you get.
It is a cool story. So you talked about being slightly above average, but kind of middle of the pack through your childhood in academics and sports. Was there something that kind of shifted in you when you realized that you were scared of being ordinary?
Yeah, I would say during COVID, a lot changed for me, and I'm very grateful for this. Like, this is when I realized my mindset was a bit different because everybody else was staying home, watching Netflix, eating whatever. Like, they were just taking a pause on their life because the world shut down. Really, I was living in Pennsylvania. Restrictions were pretty tight, and you couldn't do much. For me, like, it was never a desire for me just to sit on the couch all day, watch Netflix, eat junk food, and then do it again the next day. For some reason, I was like, I'm going to start reading books. I'm going to start watching YouTube videos to learn about things. I bought my first course on personal development. I started like researching different things that I could do to get better, make different streams of income. And that was like a eye-opening moment for me, because I saw all of my peers and everybody in society really taking a step back, because they're like, the world shut down, I'm going to shut down. But for me, I was like, if this lasts for a year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever, I want to be sprinting out of the pandemic. Like, I want to be ready to go. World's open, opportunities ready to go. I'm prepared. I'm not going to be like, I'm still the same person that I was, or maybe even worse. So that was a good moment for me to realize I'm wired a little bit different mentally. Like, I want it more than some people do. I'm willing to work for it. But then also it was a direct substitute to what other people are doing. People are being lazy. I'm going to work harder. I like fine-tuned this little basement gym set up in my house, and like I was working out every single day. I was reading, doing the things that were necessary to get better, but most people weren't doing it.
Oh, that resonates so much. I can also remember COVID. The makeshift gym setup that we all had in COVID was so real. That's the time I actually first kind of got involved in fitness as well. So I had that same desire to come out of the pandemic stronger, and a leveled up version of me, I guess, before Level Up Lily was even a thing. But I did see so many people who just were stagnant, or they slipped backwards. And then they were struggling to pick themselves up when we kind of emerged. But it sounds like you came out of COVID sprinting. Was this around the time that you started your own podcast?
Yeah, it was like right before. So pandemic started 2020. I started my podcast in 2021. So that whole year was a lot of preparation work. I didn't know what it was going to bring. Was I going to start a business? Was I going to do different things? I didn't know. I was just like, I'm going to invest in myself. And that aha moment was, you're going to start a podcast. That's going to be the first step for you. And I wouldn't be in that position to even entertain that idea if I didn't do the personal work before. Because if I was just a average person with no value to bring, which that was me previously, I would never pick up a microphone and talk, because I would have no confidence, no idea on how to do it. But because I did a little bit of preparation before then, a little bit of internal work, I was able to start it. And then from there, it's like, the reason I got to where I was because I did the work. Why would I ever stop? So it's just a cycle of over the last 4 or 5 years of making sure I'm continuing to invest in myself.
And the continuing to invest is key too, because it's not like you just did it that 1 year and then you're good and you start the podcast and you're thriving. You're constantly relearning and growing. And I'm sure that has been, the podcast Define Success has been very instrumental in that as well. Do you want to talk a little bit about the show?
Yeah, absolutely. So in 2021, I got the idea to start a podcast. I was walking down Rodeo Drive in Los Angeles, and there's supercars, there's designer stores. Everybody there is like super wealthy. They're famous. It's everything flashy. And I'm sitting there with a t-shirt and joggers. I don't care about anything materialistic. And I'm walking down, just checking it out. And I realized to myself, like, this is what society views as success. It's money, fame, status, but I didn't resonate with any of that. And for me, doing about a year plus of personal development work before that moment, I was like, I want to be successful. Like, I want a great life, but I don't care about this aspect. Like, maybe someday you buy a nice car or the watch, like, cool. But that's not priority number one for me. It's building a life I actually am proud of. So I started to think to myself, for the rest of this trip, what is success? And I couldn't figure it out. And I was like so lost, because I was thinking like, oh, here's this famous person, here's this billionaire. They're flashy. They do all these things that I saw in Rodeo Drive. So I started to ask people that I knew and respected. I was like, how do you define success? And nobody could answer it. Everybody either hesitated, or they're just like, oh, good question. Like, I'm not sure.
You were asking this to people you saw, or just people in your life?
People in my life.
Okay.
Yeah. And so nobody really had a concrete answer. Like, nobody ever thought about that. And then I said, do you want to be successful? And everybody's like, yeah, of course. And I was like, there it is. Everybody wants to be successful, but nobody knows what it is. Nobody knows what it entails. Nobody knows their personal definition for it. So I was like, it was really a podcast to talk to my previous self, of that 20-year-old sitting on Rodeo Drive, curious as to what success is. I don't want other people to be in that position. If you're putting yourself out there, if you want to develop yourself, you should have the tools to know and understand what success is. So I started interviewing successful people. I'm trying to take a style of what Napoleon Hill did years ago, and interviewing and working for the world's wealthiest people and just figuring out what they had in common. So I ask people about their story, ask them how they define success. And the ultimate goal is to have the audience get to pull some different tidbits from each and every episode and figure out ultimately, here's how I define success. And then they can go and run with that and build a life that they actually want.
Very cool. And how many episodes do you have so far?
This week was 204.
Wow.
Yeah.
So in 204 episodes, you've probably heard a lot of definitions of success. Is there something that you've noticed as a general theme?
Yeah. I had this realization pretty recently. All successful people are contrarians. Contrarian being they go against the grain of society. If you look at the most successful people that the world's ever seen, they're the ones that have been inventing different things that nobody's ever thought of. They're the ones that make change in policy and government because they're the ones that actually enact that change. They think about a different way to live. They're the ones that build brands and companies that everybody in the world uses. So they're a little bit different. They are criticized. They think differently. They go against what society deems as appropriate sometimes. So I see that as like a broad generalization for successful people. And then the people I interview, everybody has something a little bit different. I always ask the question, like, what's something you believe in that most people disagree with? And I'm really honing in on that because all successful people are wired a little bit differently. Like society pushes you this way, they push the other way. So for me, the general, I get something from every episode of like, here's how this person made more money. Here's how this person challenged their mindset in different ways. Here's how this person did a crazy physical feat. But ultimately, at the end of the day, they're all like, fuck what society has to offer. I'm going to go my way. I'm going to pursue like what I actually want. I'm going to have the courage to do exactly what I want to do in life. And they do it. No questions asked. So for me, it's like, I want to live that kind of life of being a contrarian, going against the grain. And if I believe in something, like I'm going to stand up for it.
That's very cool. I love that that's been your inspiration for the podcast. And I also think that that ties back into that idea of being ordinary, but seeking something extraordinary. Mm-hmm. Because I'm sure that not every guest was born with these characteristics that make them successful, but they've been able to step into that. And like you said, they're going against the grain. I often think about how successful people are told that you can't do it. And then they just go out and try to prove you wrong.
Yeah.
At least that's what I strive to do. Mm-hmm. And it's very interesting to hear like what you've collected over time. Has what you've learned from the podcast changed your idea of the world and success?
Yeah. Because you grow up thinking success is about money and like your bank account reflects success. When you think about when you're younger and you say like this person's successful, the instant thing is like, oh, what have they built? What's their net worth? Right. But I started interviewing people that were all older than me. And these people are like, yeah, success to me is family, it's health, it's purpose and passion. And like nobody's mentioning money. There's very few out of 204 episodes, maybe like 2 or 3 have said, oh, I want to make a ton of money. Like that's success to me. So it shows me that like we all have it wrong. That moment on Rodeo Drive where I was like, success is viewed as money and fame and status. Like that's true. That's how most people see it. But when you actually talk to people that have built real success and they're fulfilled, they're happy in life, they don't care about it. Money's important. Like I want to make a lot of money. We can all agree on that. And there's no like beat around the bush, but there's so many deeper reasons to it. People that have actually been successful, like they build something they're passionate about. They have a family. They get to experience great things in life. And that for me was super cool to see because a lot of people do have it wrong. And it takes like unlearning that to really change how you view success. Yeah,
I hear that. The money is a byproduct of, doing something big, whether that be developing a product or a company. And certainly is important. Of course, it allows you to live comfortably and provide for that family and have those wonderful experiences. But after a certain point, I think it's true. Mm-hmm. Because also if you have all this money, but you don't have the people around you that are meaningful in your life and you're not able to go out and experience things, or maybe you're unhealthy and you physically can't go and do these things, then you're not going to be happy. And what is the point of success and all that money if you can't enjoy it?
Yeah. It's crazy too, seeing the wave of like billionaires today, like Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, like they're all like investing into their health and like wellness, which is very interesting because previously everybody's like, you need to work 20-hour days, you need to do the same thing. And they all looked unhealthy. And now these people are like, like actually health and prosperity and fulfillment is the key to success. The money is all the byproduct. So it's cool to see that people are kind of catching on and realizing you can't have one thing. Like I interviewed one guy and he basically told me straight up, Elon Musk is not successful. This was before Elon started getting fit, because he's like, Elon will admit I'm not physically fit, and you can't be successful if one thing in your life is lacking. And I think there's some truth to that of like, yeah, you can have a good bank account, but if your family life sucks, how can you be successful? You go to bed at night knowing like something's out of whack. So you don't need to be perfect at everything, but it's making sure there's checks and balances of like, I'm successful in finances, family, fitness, faith, whatever else is important to you. That's what really makes a successful life.
Very true. Have you heard the statistic that there's more millionaires in the world than people with six packs?
Really?
Yeah.
I believe it though.
Yeah, because it just shows money can't buy everything. Money can't buy a healthy body. But I kind of wanted to get into that a little bit with you. So you are a trainer. That's your job. What got you into training, and like what calls you to get into training?
Yeah, for sure. So I didn't expect to get into training. I grew up going to commercial gyms like a Crunch Fitness, LA Fitness. All the trainers there were overweight. They're having clients pay them to walk on a treadmill. Like it didn't make sense to me. I had a super negative outlook on the industry. So I never pursued it. I go through college, I moved to Austin, and I'm like figuring things out. I'm 22 years old. I have no idea what I'm going to do. Kind of just threw a dart at the map, moved down here with my friends. We're like, let's all figure this out. I had barely any money to my name. I was like, something's got to work. So I'm trying different jobs, trying to make like sense of what could work in this new era of my life. And I was like failing. And I got to a point where I was just like, I'm lacking community. I moved to Austin to level up and become a better person. And I'm like going about this by myself. Like I'm fighting every day to try to like make something work. And I have no support, no help, no inspiration. So I end up reaching out to the gym in Austin called Kollective. It's a high performance social club. You got gym, co-working, recovery. At the time, there was NFL athletes always training there. And I sent this email just like, hey, I want to work the front desk. Like, do you guys have any openings? And I knew I was probably going to be doing something I didn't really want to do. And I was probably going to be underpaid. But I was okay with that because I was like, I need to be in a room that I feel inspired and grow. And maybe I meet my next employer that's a member. Maybe I make some new friends. Like, I just need something. So they get back to me. They hire me. Within the first few months, I saw how real training operated. People that were training, high-level people, millionaires, NFL athletes. I was like, oh, these people show up differently. They research these practices. They live at a higher standard than the trainer I saw 5 years ago at Crunch Fitness. I kind of like this. So I start going down the rabbit hole of like doing my own research, and I start talking to them, picking their brain. What'd you do here? Can I ask you about this? And I start to grow this passion for the industry. I ended up going to my management team at Kollective. I was just like, hey, this is now a desire of mine. I don't know what that would entail, but like, I want you to know that I've piqued an interest in training. And they're like, okay, go get certified, go check that box, then we'll see what we can do. If not, we'll maybe connect you with someone else, different gym in Austin. And luckily through hard work and just making sure I was living at a high standard and providing value to the gym, once I got certified, they offered me a position as a trainer. So I've been training for a little bit over a year at Kollective. It's been an amazing experience. I love the process of just making someone better because I've been through that. Like Ed Milet says, you're most qualified to help the person that you used to be. I used to be someone that had low self-confidence. I had no physique whatsoever. I was a skinny kid growing up, and a lot of my value was attached to that. And I've been able to transform my mind and my mindset. So why can't I give that to someone else? I don't care if they're 60 years old. I don't care if they're younger than me. Like, let me give you my experience, my knowledge, and my hunger. Because I'm very new to the industry. I'm younger, but I am hungry to provide value to make sure that people feel seen, feel heard, and are actually getting better.
That's very cool. And being new to an industry doesn't necessarily mean that you're not as qualified, but it's like you said, you have that hunger to help people and a hunger to get going. I will say that I have worked with trainers throughout my fitness journey, back like from coaches to then finishing up with sports, like stopping sports in college, but getting a personal trainer because I had no idea what I was doing for fitness. And that changing my life, not only because, yes, she taught me how to exercise correctly and how to change my physique in the way I wanted to, but also to gain that confidence is huge. And that's something that training gives you that most people don't think about when they join. They're like, oh, I want to lose weight or I want to get toned or something like that. But then they can become totally leveled up in their mindset too.
Yeah. Most people will hire a coach or a trainer for the physique goal, but they'll stay for their personal development because they realize like, this isn't all just about moving my body and going up in weight every other week and following a program. Like, yes, that's important, but it's also being around someone that inspires you and makes you better. That's what people stay around for life for. Like, I've had clients that have signed on with me because they've been like, I see how you show up in person, or I follow you on social media, I see what you do. And they want to be around, like, just like I want to be around people that level me up and inspire me. Like, people want that as well. So if you can serve as a source of inspiration of like, I am living at this standard, I want you to come with me, you'll get a lot of work and you can provide a lot of value to people.
That's very cool. You also talked about Kollective and the gym being a community and in general, people who are excelling and trying to help others through that too. Has being part of that community also shifted you, and has that influenced the podcast in any way too? I think about how all of those factors tie together.
Changed my life. Like, being in that building almost every day for the past year and a half, 2 years has changed my life. I'm constantly inspired by people that walk through the door, how they show up, how they operate, how they carry themselves, how they talk, what they build in their career or business is incredible. And like, being able to see that and interact with those people is second to none. That's exactly why I moved to a place like this. I didn't realize it at the moment. I was just like, I'm out of college, I'm going to go try something new. But deep down, I knew like I needed to level up. I kind of maxed out like what was there for me in my hometown. Like, let me go see what else is there in the world. So unknowingly, I moved into like the best spot to grow. And Austin's an amazing community. And being able to call some of the most successful people in this community my friends is like such a blessing. I get to talk to them, ask them questions, and just observe and see like, how are you guys showing up? It's also cool because they look at me as a source of value too, whether they're asking questions about fitness or mindset, or they're listening to my podcast, or they're actually using me as a trainer. It's cool to see like, this successful person is actually, they want me in their life. I can provide value to them. So it makes me show up as a better person because I don't want to let them down at all. And then for the podcast as well, like, I get like some guest speakers from that community of like, hey, I see you every day. Like, let's get you on the podcast and talk. And then also like, some people will listen and they're in that world of business and personal development. So they'll give me feedback, and it's just instrumental of my growth as a person, as a trainer, as a podcaster, to be somewhere where I feel like I'm the dumbest in the room. And I haven't always felt that in my life, but in the last year and a half, I feel it every single day. And it's such a good feeling because, again, it makes me grow and it makes me realize I might be ordinary, but if I want to be extraordinary, this is where I need to be.
It's funny to hear you say that's a great feeling, to being the dumbest in the room, because I think a lot of people push back on that. They don't want to be the dumbest in the room. They want to feel like they're the smartest or the strongest or the most successful. But then if you're not surrounding yourself by other people who are above you and maybe 3 steps ahead of you, then how are you going to have anything to aspire towards? If you're just surrounding yourself with people who are in the past.
You'll start to lower your standards too.
Yeah.
If you're around people that they don't operate at a high level, they are dumber than, all right, I hate to say the word dumber, but they're dumber than you, or they make less money. Or
maybe they just haven't invested that same level of time into educating themselves and the personal development too.
Yeah, great way to put it. The way that they operate, you'll start to adapt to that because that's who you're around. One of my mentors last year told me willpower is not needed when you're in the right environment. So what that means is like, everybody talks about willpower and discipline is like, you need this, you need to push through everything. But if you're around people that operate at a high level and they expect that out of you, like, it's second nature. If I was living with, let's say, three multimillionaires, and their expectation is like you wake up at a certain time, you eat a certain way, you work out, you work on your business or your passion for X amount of time. I would quickly adapt to that because that's now the standard. I don't need the discipline to be like, oh, this is so difficult to do, because I'm in the environment of growth where most people get caught up of like, they get comfortable in their environment and they don't have a source of inspiration to actually get better. And then all of a sudden it's so hard to actually do that level upping because you need all the discipline in the world. You need every ounce of willpower to break through the standard of what your actual social group has.
Yeah, it does take that willpower if you're surrounded by people who aren't bettering themselves, and because you feel like the odd one out.
Yep.
And it then feels even more isolating too, because you may be working on yourself, but a lot of that is giving up short-term gratification in order to receive long-term benefits.
Yep.
It's like staying in on a night when other people are going out and reading, for your personal development, or getting up early, getting in that workout when other people are, hanging out, just sleeping. And that can feel isolating if you're not in that kind of environment. That's where I was before this too. And that was a big reason I moved to Austin as well. You say unknowingly, it was a community of people. I knew it. The second I stepped foot in Austin and actually found my gym that I now go to, I was like, wow, this is an environment that I want to be in. This energy is infectious.
Yep.
And that was a big reason why I came here, because I was looking for those people to challenge me and help me grow too.
Good for you. And you're living that too. Like it's a good thing to, manifest that and like have that as a goal, but actually you need to do the work to get there. And I know you've been doing that, and like so many people in Austin, like they do a good job of actually putting themselves out there, but you can only hope for so long. You can only hope like, oh, I hope I find that right group. I hope I find a good opportunity. You got to actually put the work. You got to show up and put yourself in the environment to receive those blessings. So that's a big thing for a lot of people. You can't just move somewhere and expect your life to change. You got to actually work for it.
Yeah, like I guess that should be a question maybe for us to give to each other, to the audience. How do you find that supportive group and that supportive environment if you aren't just going to pick up and move to Austin, Texas, which I feel like this has been an advertisement to do. But if you can't do that, how do you find that group? You found yours at a gym. I also did. But there are other spaces too. If like you're not necessarily, if fitness is not your entire interest.
Yeah, I think looking at where you spend the most time and what people do you want in your life. Do you want people that are into fitness, work hard in their career, business? Do you want people that are faith driven? That's going to narrow down where you should be. You're probably not going to meet your best friend at a bar if you want to be waking up early, going to the gym. That's just the reality. But if you are like, hey, I want more people in my life that are working super hard, maybe you start going to a co-working place that you can see what people are doing. Maybe someone's a business owner, and just being around them will inspire you. But then eventually you'll have those conversations. Could be the gym, could be run clubs. Those are huge nationwide now. It could be church, finding people that have the similar belief as you. And you're like, hey, I want my circle to look like this and think the same way. Just go in that environment that people are operating at a similar level as you.
Going back onto the topic of training in athletics, I see that you're involved in Grady Sports. Can you talk a little bit about what you do and the kind of coaching or inspiration that you give to the people you work with?
Yeah. So in college, I really thought I was going to be an NFL agent. I was like going for sports management, like a sport business degree. And I met the founder of Grady Sports Agency. His name's Joshua. And I was like, hey, like, I think I want to do this. Can I work for free? And so I just built a relationship 4 or 5 years ago. And eventually just one thing led to another. I kept moving up in the company, picking up different roles, having different responsibilities. My priorities have changed a little bit, and I'm getting more into like the fitness and coaching and everything. But it's providing value to the agency still. We work with NFL players. We work with guys that are transitioning to the NFL right now. We have 6 guys that are taking a leap from college to the NFL over the next few months. So for me, my role is like I help them with the interview preparation process. So each player is going to talk to almost every single NFL team. So I get them ready to have those conversations because it could be a nerve-wracking environment for them. So get them ready to have those conversations, answer the questions properly. And then as well, like I last year got a certification in mental performance coaching. So it's like personal training for the mind. And I serve as a sort of a mentor coach for those athletes as well. Just last night, I was on a call with one of them who's an NFL prospect right now, and just talking about how he was feeling very uncertain about the process and had some anxiety. And we just walked through some practices and some procedures that I had of like, hey, let's move you from point A to point B mentally. And, you know, he was super receptive to everything. Like this morning, he was saying how the call was so great. So just provide value in a different way. Maybe I'm not going to be the agent that's negotiating the contract, but I have value I can provide to athletes. And that's eventually somewhere I want to step into, of being a performance coach for athletes, entrepreneurs, high achievers in society, to make sure, like, yes, you have the body and everything else to get you to where you need to be, but the mind is what's lacking for a longer NFL career. The mind is what's lacking from going from a 7-figure business to an 8-figure business. And I want to be the one that facilitates that growth.
And having that mindset growth and that mindset shift is ultimately not only going to impact what you're working on directly, which is their NFL career or the business, but it's going to impact you holistically too.
Yeah.
That's what I've found when circling back kind of the beginning of this conversation. If one area of your life is out of alignment, then it's hard to be your fullest, best self in all those other areas. So the mindset piece is honestly, it allows you to excel in everything.
100%. And it differentiates you very easily. We're all in competitive industries. NFL's competitive. There's 53 people on a roster. You're fighting for one spot with 2, 3, 4, 5 guys. You want to be the one that makes the spot. Like, you have to outlast that competition. In business, you have competitors. You have people that have similar demographics as you to sell their product or service. You want to be better than them. And a lot of that growth, a lot of that separation is in the mindset. You can have the best product in the world, but if you can't show up to work as your best self, you're going to fail. You could be the best athlete in the world, but if you can't get things together, work hard, show up when the lights are the brightest, you're going to fail. So I think it's catching on in society right now of you need a better mindset to perform your best and eventually make more money in anything that you do. So I'm excited to see where the industry goes. I'm excited to dive more into it myself and provide that value to people of like, hey, you got the tools, but we need to fine tune this mindset tool to make sure that you are your best self.
Do you have any advice that you would give to someone who is trying to level up either their fitness or their business or their mindset, or they're looking for the definition of success themselves? What's like the first step that you would recommend?
It's a good question. The first step should be find what really fuels you. Like, find what my mentor told me, he calls it the burn. It's what is something that makes you show up on days after you win, but also days when you don't want to show up. So you had a big win, you want to go on vacation and celebrate. What would actually make you go to work the next day? Or the day that you don't want to get out of bed, what's that one thing that gets you up? And they're probably intertwined. The same thing will get you going in both those situations. Everybody has one. Everybody has a burn, that underlying motivation that gets them performing at their best in any situation. It's finding what that is. And when you have a source of fuel that nobody else does and that only you can relate to, you're gonna go so much further than listen to a podcast that gives you a little bit of advice or read a book that tells you practice to do X, Y, Z, because this is unique to you. And now all of a sudden that fuel that gets you to show up to do different things, now you can all of a sudden pull all these puzzle pieces together and level up, be successful. So it takes getting introspective with yourself and realizing what would actually get me going. Maybe you're in a rut right now where, like, I've been there. You want to sleep in, you want to just stop working on things. What would get you going? Lean on that, write it down, and start showing up, and good things will happen.
And it takes a lot of people their entire lives to find that.
Yeah. And like Lewis Howes said, it's okay to not know what your purpose is, but it's not okay to not be in constant pursuit of it. So you could listen to us talk right now and be like, I have no idea what would get me out of bed. That's okay. But if you're not trying to find that on a day-to-day basis, you're failing yourself, because all of a sudden years will go by and you're not operating at your highest level because you have no idea what fuels you. So it's just finding, what actually lights you up, what gets you excited, what motivates you and fuels you. That should be a honest question until you actually find it.
Finding your purpose. So anyone who's listening, if you don't know what your purpose is, just dive deep into that. Maybe surround yourself by people that you see are doing well in life. See what they're striving towards. And you're right. It is very unique to each person. And sometimes it doesn't feel like, oh, this thing is my purpose, but that doesn't necessarily always have to be a job either. I think that's something that I've been grappling with. And I know many people, especially young people, grapple with, like, is my job my purpose? Do I need to make my purpose my job?
It could be something so small of like just what lights you up and makes you happy. And I think the more you realize that, the easier it is to figure out ways to monetize that. And maybe that does become your full-time thing. Or it could be something where it's like, hey, I have a full-time career that doesn't light me up, but I'm able to do this on weekends or different times to give me that fix of my passion. So there's ways to go around it. It's tough to, especially in today's economy, people I feel like are just sign up for anything that can pay the bills, because it is tough out there. But maybe you don't have the first pick for your dream job right now, but you need to prove out yourself, build that resume, give yourself the fuel to actually one day step into exactly what you want to do.
That's great advice.
Thank you.
And this has been an awesome conversation. I hate to end it, but I do want to ask you, we've talked a lot about leveling up and the things you're doing, especially the way you set up your days and the way you strive for greatness. Surround yourself with people who are challenging you. One other thing that I always focus on with leveling up is you also need to take some time to slow down and relax in order to balance that out. So do you have anything that you're doing right now to slow down in life?
It's a good question.
It's always the hardest one for other like high achievers. I never know how to answer. I've been getting better about answering it, but it's only because I'm very intentional about it. Otherwise, I'm not great about it.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I feel like I live a very fast-paced life, and I enjoy it. I operate well at that speed, but it's tough to give yourself opportunity to slow down. Something I'm doing now. So when I set goals for the beginning of 2025, I was like, I want to get through the entire Bible cover to cover this year. And me and my one friend we selected a plan that will get us in 365 days to get there. So you take a small chunk every single day. So we're setting our like accountability every day, screenshot of like, hey, got day 1 done, got day 2 done. So for me, that is an opportunity for me to slow down because I'm intentional. I remove my phone from the setting. I'm reading for 10, 15 minutes. It's super quick. So it's something that just allows me to immerse myself, learn something, just meditate on something for the rest of the day. But also like I can be focused without any distractions coming into my environment. So that's what slows me down right now, and helps me get better as well.
That's great. And yeah, self-care doesn't necessarily have to be what you imagine in a typical sense. It's doing something that is going to revive you and refresh you for the rest of the day.
Absolutely.
Very cool. Well, thank you, Matt, for joining me. Can you let the audience know how they can connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So Instagram is Matt_Lupi. I'm also on any podcast platform with the Define Success podcast, YouTube as well. But would love to connect. And if you got any value, shoot us a DM. We would love to hear what you think.
Awesome. And all those links will be in the description below. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
Awesome.